Hey, friends! Welcome to SB-80, the ricketiest space station in the Federation. It's official. We got voted yet again. Ricketiest and rustiest. So we're killing the R&R on here. And we have got with us, there's Ensign Rosario. Hello, Raphael. We've got Ensign Rule back. Hello, Chris. And hey, it's not just me. It's never just me. When it's fun, it's never me. We also have with us the birthday boy. Let's welcome him in. It's Joe Townsend, Commander Townsend. How are you, sir?
Well, Captain John, I'm doing great, sir. It's been a wonderful day leading up to now, which is always the highlight of any Tuesday. And you know what, rickety, rustiest, we are nothing if not consistent.
Absolutely. We give that to the world, to the universe. And of course, everybody loves this next crewman. He is just such a vital part of the show, and we're so happy to have him with us. Have you folks met Eric Kramer? And Eric Kramer,
I've got a rank now. I'm keeping the ship together below decks. But I'm running out of duct tape.
Chief Petty Officer Kramer, who has promised us that at least once per episode he will be petty.
You just
It's
don't know.
Tough for him, but he'll do it.
We need like a petty alert. Like a siren or something that goes off.
Okay. Joe and I are on it. That's the sort of thing we do. So, what's tonight's show about? Tonight's show is about one of the most popular episodes in the history of Star Trek.
And that, popular, of course, best.
Okay, let's break this down. All right, Kramer, what rank does City on the Edge of Forever have for you in favorite Star Trek episodes? What rank do you give it? What number?
Okay, ask me that question again, and I'll show you some real actor timing. This is why I went to theater school 4 years. What? Ready? Ask me again.
Kramer, what rank?
One.
Timing. It's always timing. Number one. Seriously,
this for me is number one. Number one, certainly, absolutely for the original series, but I think overall this is just a brilliant episode of television.
I'm so glad. I am so glad. And this is a this is a common feeling. Chris feels this way. It's top 10 for him. Birthday boy, Commander Joe Townsend, where do you rank this episode? Because I imagine it's pretty high.
Oh, but definitely high. I mean, I agree with Eric. I mean, when judging just from the original series, number one, absolutely. When judging the entire franchise, well, there's lots of duds there, but there's quite a few good ones too. So I will put it in the top 5 franchise-wide. Put that way.
Yeah. I think for me, I go franchise-wide, and honestly, this one's top 3.
Yeah, so we're all there.
We're all there. Is it my number one? It could be. It very well could be, because they do change all the time, my favorite episode. But this one is kind of undeniable. We should actually talk about. Let's talk about the genesis of this episode. This episode is from, correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Townsend, because I didn't put my cheat sheet in front of me. This is 1967?
Yes, episode 28, which is one shy of the season, yes. Season ender.
And the beautiful thing about this one is this level of science fiction was, it was really rare. I mean, everybody knows that about Star Trek. People, you've got Lost in Space. You've got the Twilight Zone, the Outer Limits. Sci-fi was not unheard of on the air, but the sort of the way that science fiction became a very prescient cultural thing in American literature, especially in the 60s, I always think of Star Trek as being a big part of that. And I always think of the proof as being that this one was originally written by Harlan Ellison, one of the great sci-fi writers of the 20th century. Joe, why don't you tell us what you know, what notes you have about Harlan Ellison for the folks at home?
Well, here, let me go through my note. It's right here because I've been living with it my entire life, which is a long one at this point. No, I mean, Harlan Ellison wrote a brilliant script. He wasn't good for TV writing, or at least for non-anthology writing, because you have to conform to the situation that's ongoing week to week. And he wasn't prepared to do that. He thought that was just garbage. I see his point. It probably just wasn't, totally the right platform for him, because everyone knows at this point, I mean, he wrote a very different script originally, a brilliant one. I have it. There's a book called City on the Edge of Forever that contains his entire original script. It was his original script was later adapted to comic book format by IDW Comics. So it's out there. Look it up. Yeah. And it was a great script. It just didn't fit. Now, there are misconceptions about the script, his original. No, Scotty did not deal drugs. There was a character named Beckwith who had that responsibility.
Made up by Ellison. That was Ellison's invention, was Beckwith, right?
Exactly. And there's quite a few other things that we might get to in tidbits a little bit later. But maybe they didn't do the best job. I mean, I think these two scripts side by side are equivalent. They're both brilliant. One just fit the show as it needed to be, and that's the one we saw.
And I believe, I'm not going too far out on a limb when I say this, that you have in Harlan Ellison and Gene Roddenberry two of the biggest egos. Jupiter-sized, like super gas giant sized, like these egos. Holy cow. And I think the reference that you're making, Joe, was something that Gene Roddenberry said erroneously later, just dismissively, which is hilarious that somebody's being dismissive about Harlan freaking Ellison, who's a great writer. But he had said, you just should have seen the original. He had Scotty dealing drugs. Oh, it was terrible. That was not true. He did not have that.
No, I believe you're right. I mean, Gene was just making his point by exaggerating and just uttering falsehoods overall. But
Raphael asked, did Ellison renounce the final story due to Roddenberry's tampering?
He tried.
He did. Yeah, he tried, right?
Well, he wanted to use his well-known alias of Cornwalder Bird or something like that. And Roddenberry wouldn't let him, because at that point, that was a very well-known pseudonym for Harlan Ellison. It would just, in Roddenberry's view, which I agree with, it would have cheapened everything that came after it.
Yeah, I mean, that's so funny, because in doing that, Roddenberry actually exposes a real vulnerability that he had at that time, which was the show was relatively tenuous all 3 years that it was on. Yeah. And it was a different kind of science fiction. Eric, what are because you're the same age as me and Joe. What are your earliest memories?
33?
Exactly. Yeah, we're just three young dudes here.
So did Joe turn 33 or 34 today?
I am 34, so I know you're elder, so please show respect, Eric. But I want to add to John's question before you begin to answer.
Thanks for lead blocking into old age.
I'm interested also in Eric's take on, Eric, do you enjoy the episode just for what it is? Did knowing that there was an alternate version by Harlan Ellison factor into it in any way, or what's your take on all this?
No, I mean, I thoroughly, I mean, I love the episode for exactly what it was. I mean, I remember watching Star Trek as a kid, and I just remember how this episode stood out for a ton of reasons we can probably get into later. But it was like there was sort of a, as a kid, when you're watching your favorite show and it's the Enterprise and it's Spock, you're sort of going with it. This was the first show that made you sort of go, whoa, like that made you really sort of sit up and pay attention a little bit.
This episode did have it all. We got the space element because they go to this planet. We get the craziness of suddenly, they're cut off from what turns out to be their timeline.
Right.
I don't want to give away too much of what's in the beats, but this is all so science fiction. Then there's the time differences and the time travel and changing things by going back in time. Like, it is a crash course in all of these science fiction elements, which we very much, and I don't mean us, I mean the culture of sci-fi fans really takes for granted how big so many of these concepts are.
Right. And by the way, all handled really well. Like, let's face it, Star Trek gets really sloppy with timelines and time travel. And, it almost became, in some episodes, it's almost a gimmick. But this was handled in really well. And really, it's just incredibly smart writing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I would even propose, and maybe we can, figure it out near the end of this episode. I would propose that Ellison, whether he liked it or not, he really did raise the bar a lot with this episode. Roddenberry went with it. I think it made Roddenberry better. Mm-hmm. And granted, he would never admit that. And, when you get right down to it, really one of the biggest heroes in the whole thing is DC Fontana.
Oh, sure.
Who did one of the final rewrites on it that Harlan Ellison actually didn't hate.
That is high praise.
High praise indeed. Now, we should pay tribute to the fact that Chris and Raphael are talking a lot of crap about us saying that we're old, because apparently we're just a bunch of kids to them.
I'll take it.
And of course, Mike Sauter comes in hot with maybe this ep's title should have been Spock's beanie.
My question is, why didn't you just hold on to it? You could have used it in the future, and every time you had to disguise it.
Let me tell you something. He rocked it.
Yeah.
He looked good in it. Better than that Nazi helmet.
He looked so good in it that when they did Carbon Creek on Enterprise, they had 2 Vulcan men wearing that look and 1 Vulcan gal. So
yeah, it was really. We'll talk about this, but oh my God, the episode just looked great. Looked great.
This was definitely an episode that made the look the star, and in so many ways, like even when they just go back in time and they're lighting oh my God, Joan
Collins.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought for a second you were doing a bit because she's so gorgeous in this episode.
Yeah, that's it.
Like breathtaking.
John Atkinson is with us as well. I've also wondered what safety improvements were introduced to the mechanical rice picker industry.
Well, I'll tell you, John, you might just see something in the beats about that tonight, so stay tuned.
Oh, and the line you could never get away with today.
Let's do it. Let's go to the beat. I could tell you that I had it preloaded, but I didn't.
We'll just enjoy this part here.
There we go.
Retro Trekkers present a true classic from the original series, The City on the Edge of Forever. The Enterprise is orbiting a strange new world and being rocked to and fro by electromagnetic interference. The ship's computer is going haywire and Sulu gets injured. McCoy prepares a hypo-injection of hyperadrenaline to get the helmsman back behind the wheel. After reviving Sulu, there's one more jolt. If the Enterprise is rockin', don't come a-knockin'. McCoy accidentally injects himself with an entire hypo of the super serum into himself. The Doc is now extra grumpy. Insane, in fact. Murderers! Assassins! Savages! MAGA supporters! He screams. McCoy escapes the bridge and beams down to the time-twisting planet below. Kirk, Spock, Scotty, Uhura, and a couple of red shirts beam on down. The landing party discovers a mysterious machine shaped like a big donut. Broken pillars and other leftover props from Ben-Hur add the appropriate ancient ambiance. The big machine introduces itself as the Guardian of Forever. It is a glowing archway around the edge, with slow falling smoke in the middle. It is sentient, has a booming voice, and seems telepathic. It acts as a view screen and portal to rapidly displayed moments in Earth's history. The conversation with the Guardian is interrupted when out of his gourd McCoy runs through the archway and disappears. Uhura reports a loss of contact with the Enterprise. The landing party is horrified to learn from the Guardian that all they knew is now lost. McCoy has somehow changed history at whatever point he landed in the past. Uhura confesses that she is frightened. The Guardian has a suggestion. To restore the Enterprise, the Federation, and all of history, just jump inside the portal, find McCoy, put right what once went wrong, and hop on back to the 23rd century. What could be simpler? Well, it's not really. Even Dr. Sam Beckett and Al would find this mission quite a challenge. But what choice do they have? Kirk and Spock estimate when they should hop into the past and quantum leap to the 1930s. Specifically, they arrive in the Big Apple during the Great Depression. First order of business? Get some indigenous garb for the period, and most importantly, some kind of beanie to cover Spock's ears. Unfortunately, before they can get Spock a hat or trim the points of his ears, Kirk fibs to a cop. His explanation? Spock is obviously Chinese, and his ears were mangled by a mechanical rice picker.
Ooh.
Okay, well, admittedly, this scene hasn't aged very well.
Oh, it is.
After stealing some Depression-era duds, the duo find themselves in the basement of a homeless shelter. It's run by the kind and compassionate social worker and visionary, Edith Keeler.
Oh, yeah.
She offers to take in Kirk and Spock and find them work and shelter. Kirk and Spock do menial jobs to pay the rent, buy veggies and bologna, and keep Spock supplied in numerous components. The Crafton Vulcan is building some kind of doohickey that taps into the tricorder to display likely future events. Spock compares his tools to stone knives and bearskins. Well, this irks Kirk a bit. He's spent their entire combined wages to buy this stuff, leaving Kirk to eat bologna sandwiches instead of dining fine on steak. But their culinary sacrifices do pay off. Spock's new gizmo reveals what's to come and the cause. Soon after he entered the portal and arrived on 1930s Earth, McCoy saved Keeler from dying in an auto accident. This created the new bleak history. Edith became a peace activist, keeping America from entering World War II until it was too late.
Damn peaceniks.
This allowed Nazi Germany to take the world, creating a butterfly effect that wiped out the Federation and Starfleet from ever existing. Edith Keeler is a true visionary. Tragically, hers is the right idea, but at the wrong time. Spock confirms to Kirk, with true compassion for his captain, that to prevent these horrific changes to history, Edith Keeler must die. In turn, Kirk reveals to Spock that there is another complication. He has fallen in love with Edith Keeler.
Of course.
Later, Kirk catches Edith as she stumbles down the stairs. Spock reminds Kirk that she might have died right then and there, absent his interference. This is an odd comment, since they already know Edith will die in a traffic accident. Meanwhile, McCoy finally emerges into the city, still affected by the super serum.
It's true.
He encounters a homeless man who steals McCoy's phaser and vaporizes himself with it. Soon, McCoy is taken in by Keeler, who believes he is merely drunk and needs to sleep it off. As he recovers from the drug's effect, he befriends her. This is unknown to Kirk and Spock, who are only blocks away. The following night, Kirk takes Edith on a date to the movies.
Couldn't resist.
She works very hard
I love
and
it.
is in the mood to swoon over Clark Gable. Kirk's love for Edith grows as Edith shares her dreams of exploring the universe and humankind living in unity and peace. Kirk reveals that a century later, a famous novelist would recommend the words, "Let me help," over even, "I love you." An innocent comment by Edith reveals to Kirk that she has met McCoy, and he is there. Moments later, Kirk and Spock run into McCoy on the street. They hug, thrilled and relieved to see each other. Edith walks into traffic to see what's going on. Kirk moves instinctively to push her out of the way of an oncoming speedy car. Spock insists he not interfere. History is at stake. Then McCoy attempts to save Edith. Through his tears, Kirk restrains McCoy. Kind-hearted and compassionate Edith is struck by the car and dies. This is the first time that Kirk has not been able to cheat death and pat himself on the back for his ingenuity. It has never been more painful to acknowledge that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
What?
McCoy is shocked and furious, demanding to know why Kirk stopped him from saving Edith. "Do you know what you've done?" Kirk is too heartbroken to respond. Spock gently tells Bones that, "Yes, Doctor, he knows. He knows." With the timeline fixed, the trio is able to return to the planet through the Guardian Forever. Scotty is surprised to see them, since, from their perspective, Kirk and Spock left only minutes before. Uhura is delighted to report that the Enterprise has reappeared. The Guardian offers to show the crew more fantastic journeys, setting up potential sequels that never appeared until Star Trek Discovery.
Wrong.
A stoic but devastated Kirk says, "Let's get the hell out of here." Captain Kirk can never do no less than perform his duty, but he can't help but wear his heartbreak on his sleeve. But episodic television being what it is, Kirk is over it all by the following week and hitting on new babes. Earth history has been restored. Now, on the Guardian's world, the timequakes have grown silent. The only disturbance now is Harlan Ellison grumbling about what Gene Roddenberry did to his script. The rest is history.
Okay, let's talk about it and get down and dirty.
Lots to unpack here.
Well, sorry about the transition there. That was a little jarring.
We needed a lighter moment at that point.
But props to Joe. Did you hear Joe like working the weave all throughout, like bringing stuff in from all over the universe and through the movies and working it way.
That's
birthday Joe going to work right there.
I tell people we take for granted, like he's a novelist, he's a writer. Yeah, of course he is. And then on the beats, like every once in a while, you can see the magician's hands at work.
Yeah.
You can see what a great writer really is.
Close-up magic, and it's all brilliant.
Oh, God, thank you so much. That means so much to me. And I do have to apologize for one error I kind of acknowledged. And John left it up to me if I want to mention. I figured I'd do it before anybody else did. But in the beats, I mentioned that they wouldn't revisit the Guardian Forever until Discovery. Not true. He would reappear, or it would reappear in the animated series in the episode Yesteryear. So sorry about that.
We do count the animated series TAS. We do count that as part of canon, but it is probably I mean, even next to Discovery, it's probably the least watched of all the shows. Did you ever watch any of the animated shows, Eric?
Yes, I did. But but you know what's what's really interesting is they did a series of paperback stories based on the animated show, and I had the whole collection, whatever it was, Star Trek 1 through 12.
Oh my god!
And the novel versions of those animated stories are great.
Oh wow!
And all the stories weave together. Like you feel like you're on, like you feel like the Enterprise is on patrol, and you're going from story to story, and each story sort of does a callback to the previous one. Like if someone gets hurt, they're still sort of hurt in the next story.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I remember
some continuity for the first time.
Buying these things in the drugstore, these little paperbacks.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's really worth looking for, because as Joe says, continuity was very rare in the late 60s television version.
Oh, there might be one or two references, but nothing bearing. I mean, and of course they didn't want that because they wanted you to be able to jump in at any point.
Right. Well, there are definitely some comments that people made. Atkinson had some great ones. Here's one from him. There is a picture where they're in front of Floyd's barbershop. Let's jump ahead to one Townsend tidbit. Joe, can you tell John Atkinson why that happened?
Well, John, why that happened is because they were in front of Floyd barbershop from the Andy Griffith Show. They filmed a lot of the scenes in the Mayberry set. As they're walking down the street, they walk past Floyd's and then the little supermarket that was next to it.
That's awesome.
This is one of two episodes of Star Trek that used the Andy Griffith sets, the other being Miri, but only for aerial shots.
Atkinson also had this line. Wasn't there a proposed Pulp Fiction connection that has Mia getting the adrenaline shot in the heart and she revives in 1930s New York City?
Oh, that would have been great if it had.
Chris had to throw in, if he was Jewish instead of Scottish, he would be Mick Oy.
Okay. Well, a good old dad joke.
Mike Sauter says, it's interesting that the best ep of TOS. Yeah. Mike feels that way too. And the best ep of TNG, The Inner Light, involved great emotional loss of the Enterprise's captain. And the story takes place mostly away from the ship. Had you made a connection like that, Joe?
No, I did not. I do agree with Mike's comparison here. I don't necessarily, as much as I love it, I don't really think it's the best of TNG. It has some flaws. Well,
Inner Light,
Inner Light does. But yeah, it's a great comparison. But I personally not made that connection, so kudos to Mike.
I could not stop making the connection between the Enterprise episode, which is considered one of the best Enterprise episodes, Carbon Creek, where Vulcans crash land in the 1950s, I think it is.
Yeah, 1950s, because they were watching I Love Lucy at the time.
That's right. There's a great discussion among the Vulcans that they can't do the science thing they want to do because that's the night that I Love Lucy is on.
Yeah, Lucy's on that time.
and they
made a comment. I don't want to veer too far away from City on the Edge, but you did make a comment earlier about the three Vulcans in Carbon Creek, having to don the beanies to hide their ears. But my question to you, sir, is who the hell is looking at a beanie on T'Pol's head when there's other things to look at? I'll say no
more. Mike just asks a general question. Didn't Tribble's writer David Gerald write the animated series sequel to Tribble's TOS?
Covered on this show, as a matter of fact, at the beginning.
Yeah. At the very beginning of Retro Trekkers, our second episode, because we did them in order, right?
Well, we did the Triple G, and the animated episode was featured in part 2 of that Triple G.
And that's
check it out, Mike.
More Tribbles, More Troubles, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was the episode title.
Now, I don't know a lot about the books, but Raphael says in the Star Trek novel Yesterday's Son, Spock, using the Guardian of Forever, travels back to the past to find his son, Zar, who was born from a relationship with a Sarpedian woman named Zarabeth. Ooh, I like that name, Zarabeth. Atkinson says, did Alice Cramden collide with the Vulcan ship on the way to the moon? Maybe that's why they crash landed.
That must have been it. To the moon.
Chris says, I've never seen the animated series. Do we recommend the animated series, gentlemen?
I recommend it. I don't know about recommend, but yeah, it's worth a watch.
Oh, they're 20 minutes long. Give it a
Yeah, I mean, it's, honest to God, it couldn't be any more harmless. It was Saturday morning. Good Lord, they were Saturday morning cartoons. It wasn't like primetime Flintstones. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, the age group they were shooting for was 8 to 12.
Yeah,
but it had a lot of the same writers, had the people voicing, except for Walter K. I think we're checking out these 2 episodes, what I consider to be the best and the worst, and that would be respectively Yesteryear and The Infinite Vulcan, written by one Walter Koenig. You got to see that once in your life.
But DC Fontana had a big hand in it as well. I believe she was one of the main producers on it, and she's a great writer, big part of the original series. So that's the Chris, we know mentally that's my age group. Yeah. We noticed, my friend. But yeah, let's get more down and dirty with this episode. I mean, we were talking a lot about this. It really does give it all to you. There's the human story, and I think a lot of that is achieved by a very important sci-fi element, which is, in this case, going back in time, trying to line up with the same time that McCoy jumped to, proved to be impossible, and they were off. And that makes a lot of sense to me, because the space program, it was very well known in the late 60s that everything had to be timed just right. And it didn't necessarily happen the way they wanted it to. So they had to scramble and they had to pivot. And that is a big part of space travel. So making that a part of time travel, is that a good move, Eric?
Yes, I was, in a weird way. I mean, in a weird way, this whole episode sort of goes back to the fact that time is kind of unbreakable. And the fact that she dies in a car accident, but the only reason she's crossing the street to get hit by that truck is to get to Kirk.
Oh my God.
And if they had never been there, that would never have happened. Right?
Oh my God. That did not occur to me.
Yeah, because they're pinning it on McCoy.
Because otherwise, why the hell haven't, why the hell hasn't everybody traveled to that planet and absolutely screwed everybody's timeline? But it gave you the impression that time is kind of unflexible. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That it's like that time either pushes back, like that Stephen King novel. And yeah, you just at the end, it all felt inevitable. It didn't feel like it's weird. It didn't feel like Kirk was responsible for her dying because he stops McCoy, but in a weird sense, he is responsible. And it was all meant to happen that way.
Right. Right.
Well, that's an excellent point, Eric, that I never occurred to me until just now when you mentioned it, that yes, Kirk's very presence was the catalyst.
Right.
With or without McCoy.
Yeah, it wasn't like they saw her crossing the street from the window and Spock goes, "Shut the fuck up." Like the whole reason she dies is because she's going after him.
Exactly.
Do you remember the preview for this episode? Because when I was a real little kid, the channel that we would watch it on would show previews. And they just really lean heavily on the Spock line Edith Keeler must die. And that it seems very barbaric and it seems very cruel and unfair. And then when you go through the episode, it's even more so. It's even more cruel.
Well, it's a callback to where no man has gone before. You know, kill Mitchell while you can. But at least at this point, Spock has evolved enough to feel compassion for his friend and captain and say, "This is going to be horrible." You know.
Yeah.
And so there was that evolution of the character, which was appreciated. But yeah, he remains logic to the end.
I mean, there are a ton of firsts in this episode. It's the first. Can we say it's the first real relationship Kirk has ever had? Do you know what I mean?
I was going to ask that question. Yeah,
Like
I think you got a point.
It's the first sort of time. It's the first relationship with anybody that you sort of believed it at the end. You know, you believe that he was in love with her.
Well, I do believe that, and I made a little joke about him going on to other space babes the following week. Well, he did wait a couple weeks.
No, but it is. But they do touch on it in other episodes where he supposedly falls. But it's not like this. Like you see the whole relationship develop from them seeing each other in the basement, and then they're talking, and next thing you know, they're going out on dates, and then she's calling him my man, or is that what she calls him? My man, my fella, my something.
Yeah.
My fella. I think she calls him
something's 30-ish. Yes.
And by the way, how great is oh my God,
Joan Collins?
DeForest Kelly.
Okay.
How great is DeForest Kelly in this when he gets into that time period? Like how he handles her and how he talks and how he like so good. Like, I'm obviously out of my mind. You're not real either. I'm going to sit here, have a drink, and read the paper.
DeForest Kelly, people don't realize, I mean, maybe they do, but like a lot of our leads on this show had a lot of other roles.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah.
Were very much considered, you know, good actors that you want on your show. And DeForest Kelly was one of those guys. He actually did old time radio and a little bit because he was a young man when it was in its heyday. And there's an episode that I'm going to play one of these days starring DeForest Kelly. And they introduce him as like, you know, the hot new star of Paramount Pictures. And
wow.
You know, they really hype him up, and he's good. He doesn't disappoint at all. So,
and Eric, by the way, the answer to your question. How did she refer to Kirk? My young man. That's what.
My young man. That's what it is. I knew it was something
familiar.
Something of the time.
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
Right. Atkinson says, I convinced myself that had the Enterprise crew been there, Keeler would have been run down by Clark Gable's limousine. She tried to throw her bloomers to Gable. It obscured the driver's vision.
So in other words, the universe unfolds as it should.
More to Eric's point, more ammo for Eric. Yeah, I had to throw up Chris's joke. Kelly's father was a lumberjack. That's why he's named DeForest. I threw it up.
Did your sister have two kids, a boy and a girl named Denise and a nephew? Is that what happened?
And by the way, Mr. Bill Shatner, delightfully contained in this.
Right? I wonder why.
Like delightfully contained.
Let's jump to our next segment. We're definitely there. Talk about some of our favorite things. MVP doesn't have to be one player necessarily, but a lot of times we like to shine a little light and give some credit, because I think you're absolutely right, Eric. This was really like mature work.
Yeah, really. And what is that? Do you think that he rises to the material, or that because he hits a tone that this episode absolutely needed?
I'm going to answer that with two things. I'm going to say, here's my MVP for this episode, and it's very predictable. There's nothing unusual about it, but I'm going first. And that is, I think Joan Collins.
Oh, yeah.
I think she's a cut above the average starlet that Gene would hire onto the show. She did the show. It was, she didn't have to do it, but she told her kids about it. I hope I'm not stepping on a tidbit, Mr. Townsell.
No, not one of mine.
She told her kids about it, and her 4-year-old was super excited.
Wow.
And she was like, yeah, I guess I'm all in. I guess I want to do this because my little kid loves this show. And I would say, you know, Eric, you've played the boyfriend, the husband, the betrothed. You've played that before as an actor. You take a lot off of your co-star, do you not?
Yeah. It's funny. It's so funny that it's not funny. It's here I am talking about the material, but no, you're right. Like, Joan Collins is so good in this that I think I really, you just feel like she takes William Shatner in. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't be Star Trek Bill Shatner, and play off what she's given you. Like, you have to go. And listen, he's, you know, I know we all make fun of Bill every once in a while, but he's a smart guy, absolutely smart actor. He listens, he pays attention. He's not out there on his own. So look, if that's what you're getting, of course you're going to roll with that.
That's what you give.
So good in this episode. I always think of that sequence when she calls him out on the one line that always sticks with me is she finishes Spock's sentence and she goes, Captain.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Even when he doesn't say it, he does. I'm like, wow, like, so good and done in that way that you know that any dude knows you've been caught.
Right. She has sussed you out.
Doesn't punish any of them for it. She's just like, I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm watching. Yeah. I'm paying attention.
She's super, super smart. And that makes her, you know, top level in this show, right across from the captain. You know, they made a great couple.
They did. They made a really great couple.
I mean, there's Carol Marcus, the mother of his son. There's others along the way. But I firmly believe personally that Edith Keeler was the love of Kirk's life. And that's the sacrifice he made so that, you know, billions could live the life they were meant to. So how can you not be moved by that?
And I think there's one main person who made you feel that way, and it's Bill Shatner.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I know we've talked about this before. I've talked about it with you. This is the first time as a kid I had heard anybody ever swear on television.
Yes. That was a big deal.
The first time I ever heard anybody swear.
Yeah.
And that one line, again, that's that one line where he's, again, just stoic and really on point and really on tone. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
It was like, as a kid, I remember going, I'm sorry, what? What did he say? What did he say? Did I
almost like the F word back then?
It was a lot. It was a lot back then.
At the time.
Well, and it was definitely, I think, one of the first times you heard hell used as an expletive. I mean, he did refer to hell as the bad place back in Space Seed. But again,
never heard anybody say,
yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I guarantee you a bunch of first graders the next day were saying that to their friends out on the playground. And I was probably one of them.
Well, I definitely agree with Eric in the sense that, you know, Shatner, you know, rose up to the material. I mean, not that the other material is bad, but this was different. This was a realistic portrayal of a relationship.
It required something different.
It did. I mean, she wasn't an Orion slave girl. She wasn't whatever. Yeah. And I also agree with John. Joan Collins, you know, great choice. I'm going to be a little bit between the two of them in my pick. And I'm going to pick not Joan exactly, but the character Edith Keeler, in that this was truly a visionary, someone who was way ahead of her time. And unfortunately, had she succeeded in her goals, it would have been very costly. Lesson learned, but isn't it a shame that even now we are, stifling people that has these types of visions and foresight?
I see that so often in discussion of Star Trek fans online, which is, you guys, we are in no way lined up to create the Federation.
Oh my God.
Well, we got to wait for World War III, remember?
Sadly.
I don't know. Maybe the Federation and Picard were lined up for, but the Federation takes a kicking in the later iterations, right?
What's so funny about that is the first lines that McCoy says when he accidentally gets the drug. What is it again, Joe? It's murderers, barbarians,
murderers, assassins, savages, everything you can think of.
That's pretty much us still. He's not wrong. That's pretty much what the human race is.
McCoy is either the greatest hide and seeker in the world, or the other guys just suck. Because how do you walk right past a rock and not take a beat and look, oh, here he is.
Well, not to mention using a tricorder to find him, maybe.
Yeah. That actually brings up Solder. Solder, it's so funny because Solder did catch the fact that there's a lot of tricorder shots in this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me of when Captain Pike, way back in the cage, slowly opened his communicator so you could see every nuance of that prop.
That's when you're friends with the prop department and you really want them to be able to show their kids at home, like, see what Daddy made. See.
Did you ever watch Adam Savage unroll the tricorder replica? I'll send you the link to that. The same company that made my computer made it like a working tricorder.
Oh my God.
Which is the coolest goddamn thing ever.
Well, didn't you show us yours, or is that something else?
Well, I have a communicator, but they made a tricorder.
Oh, okay.
And all the little discs that they use in the tricorder are all actual recordings from the show.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I have to throw up this line from Atkinson. Elon Musk is no Zephyr Cochrane. No, he is not.
Well, maybe he drinks like Zephyr Cochrane.
He would steal
Zephyr
from
Cochrane had
Zephyr.
been on ketamine.
Cheers.
Yeah, sorry, Rosario. Ensign Rosario, no. Space Force, no. Yeah, they have a flag. No. Although, did anyone ever watch the Space Force TV series that was on Netflix?
It was terrible.
I couldn't get past
everybody in it, but it was terrible.
Good actors, had really good actors.
Really good actors, loved everybody in it. Just unfortunate. You just felt bad for them after a while. It was kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry you're doing this.
Yeah, I felt the same way about The Office, frankly, the American version. Great cast. I love them all and other things, but just couldn't get into either one of them, unfortunately.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we are there.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Everyone said this.
Joe Townsend, the man who does the beats, is also the man who provides the tidbits. What are some of the wild, interesting little pieces of trivia that show up in this episode, Mr. Townsend?
Well, thank you, sir. I'll take the floor for a moment. We already covered the whole thing that they filmed at the Andy Griffith Show set, so we'll move past that one. Let's see. Beckwith's Change of the Past is, in Harlan Ellison's original story, they're not just stranded there. The Enterprise doesn't disappear. It becomes a pirate ship called the Condor. Now, this idea was later recycled into Mirror Mirror. So at least it went there, and that was a better use of it anyway.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mentioned that Roddenberry did not want to allow Ellison to use his pseudonym because it would be known anyway. Gene L. Kuhn, along with Roddenberry, I'm sure, provided the weakest aspects of the episode, which, of course, are most of its humorous aspects, including the mechanical rice picker, which Ellison reportedly hated. I wouldn't blame him for that. It's kind of, okay. Product of the time.
Right, right.
At the 50th anniversary Star Trek convention in Vegas, it was voted the best episode, if not of this series, of all the series. So we definitely can agree that it's way, way up there, if not number one in everyone's minds. What do you guys got?
I've got one that I am particularly interested in, particularly proud of as well, which is the voice of the Guardian of Forever is a man named Bart LaRue.
Oh, Bart.
He did a lot of voiceover work for Star Trek. I'll just throw some out. He's the newscaster on Patterns of Force. He appears on camera for that. And he's also an announcer on Bread and Circuses. He plays Trelane's father, the voice in The Squire of Gothos.
Oh, I thought that was Doohan. Is that him? Bart?
In Squire of Gothos,
Okay.
it is Mr. LaRue.
All
And
right.
finally, my favorite character from The Savage Curtain, he plays the rock creature Yarnek.
That would be an Excalbian.
Okay.
Ooh. Ooh. So, a big fan of Mr. LaRue. Of course, his voice is brought back for Terra Firma Part 2 in Discovery, but it's an archived voice. He had passed away before it came time for that role to be cast. So, that's our voice. That's our Guardian of Forever.
Good voice. Good voice. Found one more here that is just, which isn't surprising, but almost all the scenes we see rolling past us quickly in The Guardian are from old Paramount movies. So,
Well, of course. There you go.
And I just want to throw this in. This episode got a lot of awards. It got awards. It got nominations. This is the only Star Trek episode to win a Writers Guild of America award.
Oh, wow.
Ellison got the award. It was for Best Written Dramatic Episode. And when he was up on stage, he made sure to be really obnoxious about the executives who messed with his script. And Roddenberry, Gene L. Kuhn, Robert Justman, and Herb Solow were in the audience.
Wow, that probably fueled the fire, not put water on it.
He was so obnoxious, Harlan Ellison, that when he was receiving the award, he made sure to let everybody know the executives who were in the audience had messed with him. Now that's Chief Petty Officer.
I was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
There's no amount of petty I can throw in here now.
Okay, let's go.
Stop that.
Chief Petty Officer Kramer, how petty is that?
That's pretty petty. That's I would say from one petty officer to another. That's a win. That wins the donut for this episode.
This is also the single best episode of the original series by popular acclaim. And it won the 1968 Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. Star Trek would have to wait 25 years before they won another of those Hugos, and they won it for The Inner Light.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Which, again, from my point of view, is fantastic, and I loved it. I guess the one weakness I would find with both episodes, again, blame it on continuity TV, or lack thereof, but we never saw any after effects of this episode on Kirk going forward. Nor did we see any after effects of John Luke after The Inner Light. One time. He pulled out his flute.
Yeah.
But again,
you're right.
Know...
That's a real shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, but I mean, but it is a series that people, at least till that point, they want people to jump in freely.
Right.
Not so easy with Deep Space Nine and later, shows that follow the serialized format.
Ensign Rosario is absolutely right. The fight poster on the wall in the alley appeared in other Star Trek scenes. And one of them was in Picard, because we find out in Picard that whenever you travel back in time, you end up in that alley.
Isn't it something? There's got to be some focal point to that alley.
And I believe the focal point is the presence of Guinan. If I'm remembering correctly, Guinan's bar is further down that alley. And that's an explanation also of why there is a bomb shelter announcement on the wall. That is out of sync. That's anachronistic. There were no CID bomb shelters.
Right.
Well, John, thank you for supplying such a great sci-fi explanation of what behind the scenes was like. Hey, we don't have any place to shoot this, so.
Let's see. Picard's flute was brought back several times, says Sauter. We definitely covered one really recently.
Well, I mean, it was mentioned here and there. I mean, the episode that featured it prominently was Lessons, where Picard got the little girlfriend. They started jamming together using his flute.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah. Chris, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it's funny.
And left her to die.
I think the flute was in his ready room.
Hunker down, I believe, was the order from Picard. Hunker down and suck it up, I believe.
I think there is a focal point in time. I still think it's October 9th, 1955.
That sounds right.
Okay. That's where Marty always ended up with Biff. I know that. So
we have got a very exciting episode next Tuesday. We're gonna do the Dr. Crusher bangs a ghost.
We reach great heights and just come right on down again for you guys.
So, Eric, if you haven't seen this one before, oh my God.
I'm going to have to call that one up, but okay.
John and Joe cannot wait to hear your reactions to this.
Bang a ghost.
It is so great on so many levels. So Sub Rosa is next week. Coming up on Thursday on Mr. Weber's Webo Mystery, I will be playing an episode of The Falcon as we go through the many chapters of the story of what happened when Tom Conway took over from Basil Rathbone. And in order to know all of the conditions and effects and all of that, I need to introduce you to the Falcon. So and it's a good show. It's a very good show. You're going to enjoy that. How about apparently the chat has really enjoyed the Bang a Ghost. I love that T-Rex song. Says
the original lyrics, by the way.
And Chris Roebuck, of course, bringing back one of the things that Dan Aykroyd wants you to forget that he put in Ghostbusters, the time he got banged by a ghost.
What's going
to happen Sunday, you might be asking? Sundays are so different now. We are moving to 7 p.m. on Sundays because it's a 1-hour show. It's a 1-hour show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be under the new umbrella, The Wonderful World of Weber.
We got to get Tinkerbell with Weber's face on. I've already decided.
I just love that.
We're going to bring back a portion of an episode because those were long-ass episodes that Joe and I used to do on the Haunted Radio for our show, Haunted Radio Redux. And it is a true Redux. We loved doing this show. Basically, it's similar to listening to a radio show on Web of Mystery, except on Web of Mystery, we don't interrupt the show. On Haunted Radio, we don't stop interrupting the show. We hit pause.
Radio, exactly.
So it's going to be a very fun show. Joe and I listened to some great stuff way back in the day. So I'm going to be cutting it down and editing it and, putting on my editor's cap. And, it's going to be very exciting.
Now, I want to answer Chris's question. Isn't that the RKO antenna? My answer to that is 2 words: fair use.
Fair use. Stage direction. Aykroyd crosses eyes. Oh, can you imagine if he always made that face? Oh,
Stick
poor
that way.
Donna Dixon. Oh, I feel bad. Okay. Oh, look at us. We still went over an hour. Damn it. I thought we could come in under an hour here. Oh, well. Boys, thank you so much for doing the show. And any last thoughts? Because we've already blown it. We've already gone past an hour. Any last thoughts on this episode, City on the Edge of Forever?
What do you think, Eric? There's always more, but
you kind of wish there was a few more like it.
yeah,
It's a little. I mean, it's great that it existed. It's a little sad that it's sort of the one out of all 3 seasons of that show that really went in that direction.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, it is by far. If you have any episode in Star Trek, generally, people fall in love, and there's sacrifices to be made, tragedies to be endured, but this rings the most true. I absolutely agree with that.
If I were to tell anyone to watch one episode of Star Trek, this would be that episode.
I agree.
Yeah. If you
All right.
want to, and Nimoy would say that constantly in interviews.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh sure. I mean, it's Shatner's favorite.
So he brought up all constantly in interviews. I watch him on Merv Griffin. Like this is the episode. He goes, "This is Star Trek."
That's so great because it wasn't necessarily a Spock episode. It was that small ensemble that they would have of the 3, the best friends club as some people like to call it. And it's really great for everybody. And frankly, I hate to say this, best thing Joan Collins ever did.
You want a Dynasty fan, John?
She really is. She's incredibly good. She is. And I'm glad she did it. I'm very, very glad that she did it so that I can have that to say thank you, Ms. Joan Collins, who I believe is still alive. God bless
I believe
her.
so. Yeah. Looking as legal as ever.
I hit it real early, so we're gonna go with it. The closing credits.
John has that itchy button pusher finger today.
Thank you, Chief Kramer. Thank you, Commander Joe Townsville.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
for joining us. And happy birthday to Joe.
Happy birthday, Joe.
Thank you all so much. I love it.
What
a great way to spend my birthday evening.
Birthday boy's gonna get left on screen last.
Okay.
Recap, review, retro.